Welcome everyone to the fifth public open house for the Denver Central Community Transportation Network. This is a recording of the live presentation that was given on March 22nd. We unfortunately ran into a glitch with getting to record the English version of the presentation, and so we have made a second recording so that that is available. So I'm going to quickly walk you through what we'll discuss in the presentation today. We're going to give you a quick overview and a reminder of what the Community Transportation Network process is. For some of you, you have been following along since this process first began in March of 2020. And for others of you, this may be your first time joining us or hearing about the process. And so we want to make sure that you have a good understanding about what this project is all about. We have a couple of project updates that will be given that are related to 3 different corridors that include Bruce Randolph. And then we'll also talk about 26th Avenue and 28th Avenue and the protected bike lanes that are proposed on both of those streets. Next, we'll be giving you some information on how you can provide feedback on all of the remaining designs, and we'll show you how to use an innovative online tool where you can provide feedback to us. And then we'll also be sharing how you can find out how to get office hours, to contact Dottie staff if you have any additional feedback or concerns that you'd like to discuss with us. And then finally, we'll also be talking about how we've been taking the feedback that you've given for other streets that are outside of our bike projects and how we've been taking that feedback and are planning to make multimodal recommendations as a part of that process. So I'll just quickly introduce who you'll be hearing from today. I'm Riley Lemie, and I'm with the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, which is DOTI for short, and I'm a city planner with the DOTI Transportation Planning Team. So you'll be hearing a little bit from me to start, and then I'm going to transition it to Nikki Reimer, who is also a part of the project team, and she'll be sharing a little bit of information about some of the neighborhood bikeway projects and also talking about how you can provide feedback on the multimodal projects. So just a reminder of the overall purpose and process for what is the Central Community Transportation Network. So Denverites have long expressed through various planning processes a vision for streets that are more connected for biking and walking, and to make biking and walking a more accessible transportation choice in Denver. And to do this, it means that we must create a more connected streets that are safe and comfortable to travel by bicycle. And so you'll see this graphic that is expanding on my screen that shows what our bicycle network looked like starting in 2018 and where we're trying to go with this process. So to accelerate the implementation of the Denver Moves Bicycles Plan that was developed in 2011, and to make it possible to have more streets that are connected for bicycling and walking, Denver has committed to building out 125 miles of bikeways by 2023. We're initially concentrating these improvements into 3 major focus areas, and as well as also building out projects that were funded through the Elevate Denver Bond program that really create sort of a spine or backbone of our bicycle network. Today, we're really focused on the central area in Denver. So I mentioned before that we're focusing right now on 3 focus areas. Currently, we're focused for this presentation on central Denver, and that includes 25 miles of bikeways within central Denver that were identified from the 2011 Denver Moves Bicycles Plan, which was then updated again in 2015. We started the concept designs for these projects back in 2020 and then refined them through community input and outreach in 2021. And the design and construction of those projects is broken out into 2 separate phases. There are a lot of different projects associated with this process. As I just mentioned, there were 16 of them altogether. And so we have broken out the construction into 2 different phases. In 2020 and 2021, we started and finalized the design for projects in the first phase, and those include the projects that you can see on the screen, including the 25th Avenue Neighborhood Bikeway, Lawrence Street Neighborhood Bikeway, and then the remaining that you see listed here. These projects we took to the community last spring and took those to the community for to get their feedback on the 60% designs. Those projects have continued to advance through the design phase and are now nearing construction. So if you've been following this process all along and have been wondering, when am I going to start to see construction of those projects? The answer is to that is relatively soon. So these projects are scheduled to be constructed sometime over this year in 2022. And it's likely that you would see these projects being constructed starting later this summer or early fall. And for our second phase of projects, these are projects that we're looking to get your feedback currently. And these are projects where we started the design and concept planning for these back in 2020. And again, are now ready to advance these to the final design stages and are currently in the 60% design stage for these projects. So again, these projects are sort of the next round of projects that we're looking for community input on. And these projects will be headed to construction in 2023. So we'll be getting community feedback on them, advancing the designs this summer, and then these projects are planned for 2023. So just overall, as of the project timeline, as I mentioned earlier, this whole process kicked off back in 2020 in March, and then through numerous community stakeholder meetings that are comprised various community organizations, neighborhood organizations, and as well as active community members or community leaders. We've had numerous stakeholder meetings, and in addition to that, we've also had quite a few public and community meetings or open houses to learn about these projects and be able to provide more feedback on them. So this is our 5th public open house on the Central Community Transportation Network process, and we look forward to wrapping up the final designs later this summer. And then, as I also mentioned, you'll start to see construction of those projects happening this year and then completing next year. So I do have some major project updates, and that's what we're going to transition to next. The one project I want to start talking about first is Bruce Randolph. So between Downing and Steele, a bike lane was originally proposed from the 2011 Denver Moves Bicycles plan, again, between Downing and Steele. And we looked into, based on some feedback that we received, we looked into making this a protected bike lane, and that was a concept design that was shared with the community last year as well as the year before that. However, based on some of the community response that we heard from that project, we found a need to balance the facility type that with the needs of the community. And so we've actually revised the designs back to a striped bike lane as it was originally proposed instead of a protected bike lane. And in addition to that, we are also proposing a parallel neighborhood bikeway on 35th Avenue, which is just north of Bruce Randolph. And each type bikeway would serve a different purpose, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. So on Bruce Randolph, providing a bike lane here will provide bicycle access to businesses. This will also increase the visibility of bicycles and pedestrians by slowing down vehicle speeds. By removing the center turn lane that exists today, that's going to help narrow the roadway and provide an environment or a roadway character that discourages speeding and again makes it more visible and friendly to both bicycles and pedestrians. For East 35th, this is proposed to complement the bikeway on Bruce Randolph by also adding a high comfort connection on a residential street that would do a good job of connecting to our larger bicycle network, as you can see on the map below. This bikeway would also connect to planned or recently constructed bikeways in the Central Park neighborhood and really provide more of a regional connection. And so we see both of these projects as having benefits because while they're on different roads, they also serve different purposes. On Steele to Colorado on Bruce Randolph, the street's a little bit narrower because we don't have the center turn lane in this section of the roadway. And so what is recommended here, and I'm going to point to this chart that's to the right on the screen. Dottie uses this chart to determine the appropriate type of bikeway based on traffic volume or the speeds that are on a particular street. And that will tell us whether it's appropriate for a neighborhood bikeway, a buffered bike lane or a bike lane, or something that needs to be fully protected. Based on the numbers that we were seeing for the speeds and volumes on Bruce Randolph, that was telling us that a buffered bike lane is sort of more preferred or ideal on the street. In order to achieve that here, this does mean that removing parking would on one side of the street would be an impact of being able to construct this project. Currently, what we're proposing to do is keep parking on the north side of the street based on, and again, this is just based on data and based on some parking counts that I'll show you on the next slide. So from on Steele to Colorado, what we look at is when we're making decisions about impacts to on-street parking is we do go out and do counts at 5 in the morning when most residential use on-street parking uses are in place, and we do take an inventory to see how that parking is being utilized. And then for this corridor, we also looked at it at 12 p.m. And so again, this is the data that we're using to show how and where we can how and where it might make sense to remove parking. Then for 26th Avenue from York Street to Vine Street, that's the next project that I want to give a quick update on. So 26th Avenue, this would provide a high comfort connection across York Street. So it would connect to the existing bike lane that's already on East 26th that runs along the City Park Golf Course and provide a safe connection that's high comfort to get to the neighborhood bikeway that runs north and south on Vine Street. So when we took a look at this, we found that the volumes and speeds of traffic on 26th do indicate that a fully separated bikeway is preferred. And so in order to fit either a protected bike lane or even just a bike lane in general, that does require removing parking on both sides of the street between York and Vine. So again, just because of the traffic volumes and speeds, to fit in a fully separated or dedicated space for bicyclists in the space that is allowing us to make that connection, it does require the parking removal. A couple of quick things that I did want to point out, though, for 26th Avenue. When we look at these projects, we're also looking at not only how can we make the street safer and more friendly for bicyclists, but how can we also make improvements for pedestrians as well? One of the things that is incorporated into the design as a part of this project are curb extensions, which are designed to increase the visibility for pedestrians that are crossing the street, as well as narrow the roadway or narrow the distance that a pedestrian has to cross. And then the other benefit is that those also help to slow down turning vehicles, which improves pedestrian safety as well. A couple other things that you might notice as a part of this design, again, is the protected bike lane. So this is proposed as a protected bike lane where bikes would be fully separated from and protected from traffic in this segment. And then special lane markings that would help make bicycles more visible at York Street. Again, we do look at parking utilization when we're doing an inventory to understand when a parking trade-off is necessary as a part of a bike project, we did go out at 5 a.m. During the weekday to understand how the parking utilization currently operates. And the graphic that you see on the screen is showing that the parking was utilization was fairly low during this hour. And then the next project that I'll update is 28th Avenue from Downing to Vine Street. This again is proposed as a protected bike lane. This would provide a connection overall to our larger bicycle network, creating some connections between 5 Points, and then creating some connections between some of the north-south routes that you currently see on the screen. A concept for this project was developed through community input in 2020. And on this one, although the volumes are pretty low, the speeds are just a little bit higher than we would like to see them on the street. And that's why a protected bike lane is proposed on the street. By adding a protected bike lane, this would help to narrow the roadway, which by putting in bike infrastructure and narrowing the travel way, that has been shown to reduce vehicle speeds. And so one of the benefits by providing this protected bike lane on the street would be, again, that it's providing providing slower speeds and also providing a higher comfort street for both bicycles and pedestrians. In order to achieve a protected bike lane on 28th Avenue, parking impacts are expected on the north side of the street in order to, just based again on needing to make that trade-off in order to make the bike lane fit into the street. We did again look at the parking utilization on 28th Avenue during 5 a.m. And so between Downing and Vine, you'll see where on this image on the screen, you'll see what the parking utilization looked like. So just to quickly show some design features, this just gives a quick preview or kind of a typical view of what the protected bike lane would look like. We will also be adding curb extensions, like I described earlier, to increase pedestrian safety and visibility. And then again, this diagram is also showing where the parking would be removed and what the overall design of the protected bike lane would look like. And then next, we're going to be talking about 60% designs for the remaining projects, which are all neighborhood bikeways. So we have quite a few projects that we're looking for feedback on, and we have a special tool that we're going to talk about in just a moment where it allows you to go online during your own time and be able to provide comments on those designs. And so we'll go through that in just a moment. But first, I'm going to transition over to Nikki, who's going to talk about the remaining projects. And she's going to start by talking about what a neighborhood bikeway is, just in case you need a reminder.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Do you mind muting? I think I got feedback. Okay, great, thanks. So what is a neighborhood bikeway? So neighborhood bikeways are typically installed on streets with low volume and speeds, and they prioritize people walking and biking. So some of the things that can be implemented on roadways to make sure there are lower speeds are things like speed humps, traffic circles, curb extensions, and median refuge islands. And oftentimes a lot of these streets, they aren't cut through streets, they're more local streets. So we look at the volumes on the roadways and install things like diverters and speed humps as well if needed on those corridors. And neighborhood bikeways really focus on kind of what improvements we can make at the intersections and what we can do to slow speeds down mid-block. So for some safety improvements at intersections, things like upgrading signals or signal improvements in general, or putting those pedestrian median refuge islands at intersections. And then also signals like rapid flashing beacons or PHBs can also be installed to help with pedestrian crossings and bicycle crossings at intersections. and looking at things like striped crosswalks, if those can be installed as well. And then lastly, kind of on the intersection front, I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we kind of use this jargony term called daylighting. And basically what this means is pulling parking back at intersections. So you can see in this photo, there's the no parking sign and the cars parked behind that. Those are typically placed in strategic locations so that they're not so close to a pedestrian crossing that pedestrians aren't visible. So looking at that on our corridors as well, to make sure that ped and bikes are visible when they're crossing the intersections. So I am going to go through the neighborhood bikeways that are currently in the 60% design phase that we're looking for your feedback on. Kind of in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each intersection and what we're proposing at each intersection. Riley will go through the tool that you guys can utilize to look at the designs and details and provide your feedback. But I'll kind of just go through the key features and kind of since the last time you heard about this project, kind of what's changed. So the first one is 21st Avenue Neighborhood Bikeway, and that extends from Downing to Colorado Boulevard. And some of the key features on this corridor are just overall general traffic calming and curb extensions installed at Williams Street and Marion Street and in several locations along the corridor with marked crosswalks as well. And what's changed since last time you saw this concept design is that we've added a traffic circle at Gaylord Street and an eastbound traffic diverter at High Street as well. And then the next corridor is Vine Street, and this goes from 21st Avenue to Bruce Randolph Avenue, or Bruce Randolph, it goes up to Bruce Randolph. And on this corridor, there's traffic circles located on this corridor, as well as curb extensions at 22nd, 23rd, 26th, and 27th. And kind of what you'll notice in this design, kind of from the last time you saw the concept design, is that there's locations throughout the corridor with chicanes and pinch points to help slow vehicle speeds along the corridor. And then the next corridor is Williams Street, and this extends from 21st Avenue up to 31st Avenue. And some key features on this corridor include a traffic circle at 30th and curb extensions at 22nd, 23rd, 26th, and 27th. And again, kind of similarly to that Vine Street corridor, you'll notice some more speed mitigation measures installed on this corridor, like chicanes and pinch points. The next one is the Marion Street Neighborhood Bikeway. And key features on this corridor include a traffic circle at 30th, curb extensions at several locations at 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 25th, 26th, Bruce Randolph, and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, as well as a pedestrian refuge island installed at 24th Avenue. Kind of similar theme here. You'll also see chicanes and pinch points added on this corridor as well to help with slowing vehicle speeds. And then lastly, the Tremont Glenarm Place Neighborhood Bikeway. So this extends from 20th Ave to Washington Street. And there's several traffic calming features on this corridor as well, such as chicanes and pinch points. Also, the other thing that we proposed on this corridor was closing the slip lane at Tremont and 20th Avenue, and also a traffic circle at 24th. Some things that you'll notice that change, we're now proposing a westbound traffic diverter at 22nd Street. And this bottom picture kind of displays this, but a new ramp to connect the neighborhood bikeway along the shared use path to connect to the 22nd Avenue bike lanes. So with that, I think that's the last one. So I'll turn it back over to Riley to kind of show you how to leave comments.
All right, thanks, Dickie. So I'm going to share with you how you can provide feedback on the designs. In just a moment, I'm going to switch my screen and show you the interactive online tool that will allow you to provide comments. Normally, if we were doing this in person, we would be going to the back of a room with the designs that are printed on a large poster, and we would allow you to provide comments on a sticky note. And this tool that I'm about to share will kind of show you how you can do that virtually. And that is bit.ly/central CTN comment. And so I'm going to walk through that in just a moment. I do also want to mention, though, that if you have additional questions, concerns, feedback, and would like to connect with the project team, you can always email denvermoves@denvergov.org, and it will connect you with a Dottie staff member who will respond to your email. Also, if you have questions or concerns and would like to discuss with someone on the project team, you can also sign up for office hours. And again, those are one-on-one meetings with either 1 or 3 additional community members, where you can sign up to talk to, again, a Dottie staff person, and that's bit.ly/Denver Moves Networks. You can sign up for office hours. We will be holding those over the next couple of weeks. And just make sure that if you do go onto the website to sign up for an office hour, that you are clicking the central office hours and signing up for that link there. And then finally, we have a project hotline, which is 720-865-9378. So you can leave a message if you'd like someone to call you back and get back to you again with any questions that you might have on the overall process or project. So with that, I'm going to exit out of this screen, and I'm going to share a different screen so that we can see how to provide comments on the 60% design. So give me just one moment. Right, so again, the link for this is bit.ly/central CTN comment, and that will take you to a page that you see on my screen here. What this does is it provides an overview of all of the different projects that we're asking for your feedback on. So if you go to that page, you'll see all of the different projects that we just talked about earlier. You'll see all of those listed, and as well as the extents that are shown. So if you want to see the design or more information about a particular project, all you have to do is click on that project. So for example, I'm going to click on Vine Street and hit View 60% Design. And that will take me to the information page about the Vine Street Neighborhood Bikeway. You can read some more information there just on what a neighborhood bikeway is, just as a reminder, and it will talk about some of the different design components. And then in the middle of the page, it will show you the design. And what I recommend doing is, if there's a particular section of the street that you're most interested in and you want to see some more information on, you can click on this table of contents, and this will show you the different sections of the design. So let's say that I was really interested in knowing what was happening at Vine Street between 25th and 26th Avenue. I would click on that page here, and then that would pull up the design. You can also use the magnifying glasses to zoom in. That way you can see a little bit more information about what's actually happening on the design. And we also do have notes that indicate what all the different design features are. And for, let's say that you wanted to add a comment, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is click anywhere on the page. You'll see this little plus symbol that will show up. You can click on the page, and it allows you to add a comment. It is really important after you do make a comment to hit add comment. If you don't, then it will not save the comment. So once again, make sure that you, after including a comment on the page, that you hit add comment to be recorded. If you're viewing on a mobile device, you can also click on 60% design mobile device friendly. You can click on that button, and that will bring up a page that is a little bit easier to read on a phone. So just to go back to one more of these, let's say again, I want to look at North William Street, so I'll click on that. Can click on the zoom into the design, and I can add my comments. And then once a comment is made, you'll see it posted there, so you can go back if you want to, and you can see your comments that your other community members or neighbors have left on those pages. If you would like, you can upvote one of those comments, so you can like a comment if it's something that you agree with. So that's how to use this overall page. I'll also point out that on the main design page, there's also just a reminder about what that email address is, the project hotline, and then how to sign up for office hours. So with that, I'm going to transition us back to the presentation real quick. Just a moment there. So again, just a reminder that it's bit.ly/central CTN comment. That's how you get to the online comment tool. And then again, we'll send a reminder at the end, but you're welcome to sign up for office hours if you have additional questions or feedback that you'd like to provide on the project. You can also email us at thedenvernews@denvergov.org. So next, I'm going to transition it back to Nikki, who's going to talk to us about the multimodal project recommendations. And for those of you that have been following this process along since it kicked off in March of 2020, you'll know that we started this process off by asking, how can we improve transportation throughout central Denver, not just for bicycles, but how can we improve it for people that are walking, biking, taking transit, and driving? And we ask questions such as, where is it hard to be seen or be seen when you're crossing the street? Where do you have concerns with speeding? How can we make the streets make improvements to those individual streets? And so Nikki's going to talk about some of those recommendations that were developed as a result of that process.
Awesome, thanks, Riley. So hopefully this web platform looks familiar to some of you, although I know how it has been a while. But back in 2020, when we kicked off the community transportation networks, we actually, I think, had one of the last in-person public meetings where you were able to kind of put stickers on a map where you were concerned where there's a pedestrian or bicycle challenge crossing, or speeding concerns or transit-related concerns. So we kind of use that information combined with this online tool. So this online tool that you're seeing in the right-hand picture here encompasses both what we heard in person and on the online tool. And we got over 800 comments, which was great. And several of these comments were on our bike network corridors and were addressed in our Bikeway corridor designs. But many of them weren't on Bikeway corridors, kind of as you can see here. So the last year, we've been working pretty hard on analyzing what those multimodal comments are on the non-bikeway corridors and kind of coming up with a way to prioritize them by location and kind of coming up with recommendations. So our overall process for this was, first, we sorted all of those 800 plus comments and kind of looked at what the high priority locations were. And when we came up with a list of top, I'm forgetting the number right now, maybe 15 to 20 locations, corridors, and intersections, we went back and collected data on those corridors. So collected data, things like traffic counts, speeds, pedestrian and bicycle counts, crash data along these corridors and that intersections, to really help us understand kind of what the picture was on the corridor, what was going on, and ultimately come up with recommendations that would improve what was going on at those locations. So this first map here, this summarizes kind of all of the top corridors that you can kind of see those orange lines and intersections, the red dots in the central network that we heard about. And several of these intersections and corridors either had projects kind of ongoing on this corridor or already planned on this corridor or within close vicinity. So we narrowed down this list even further, which is this next map here. And on each of on this map, basically all of the orange dots and all of the blue lines are locations that we actually, collected data on, studied in depth, and came up with recommendations. So to kind of go through a summary of what are some of our recommendations were, we've got them summarized by both intersections and corridors. So this first slide here, I'll kind of just high level go over intersections. And one thing to note here is that there's a PDF posted on the project website that kind of goes into more depth here. I'm not going to go through each intersection and what each of the improvements were, but you can kind of use that PDF that's posted on the project website and take a more in-depth look yourself here. But as you can see, kind of this is the corridors. There's locations where we're proposing new crosswalks, leading pedestrian intervals, bulb outs. So all of our recommendations we kind of categorize as short-term and long-term improvements. And just to be fully transparent for these short-term and long-term improvements and recommendations here, there's currently not funding for these improvements. So the timing for when we'll actually see these implemented is uncertain. So just wanted to be aware of that and make you all aware of that. But kind of as you're digesting this list, I'll kind of go through some pictures and give examples of some of these recommendations that you might see. So the first one are curb extensions or bulb outs at intersections. So these really help shorten the pedestrian crossing distances and also help slow down vehicle turning speeds. And then the next one that you may see on for some projects is pedestrian refuge islands. So these actually provide a refuge area in the middle of the road so that pedestrians can cross in 2 stages. And then the next one, pretty self-explanatory, but just new crosswalks at certain locations throughout our project list. And then the next is neighborhood traffic circle. So I think this is an example from the 35th Avenue neighborhood bikeway. Just really helps with slowing vehicle speeds along corridors. And then the next one is daylighting at intersection, which I kind of started to describe a little bit earlier, but making sure that parking is pulled back far enough from an intersection and pedestrian crossing so that vehicles can basically see pedestrians and have that visibility of them crossing the street, and vice versa, that pedestrians that are trying to cross the street can see oncoming cars as well. And then the next one is what we call our rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So these are pedestrian signals that are installed at crosswalks that a pedestrian can push the button, it starts flashing and alerts vehicles to stop and yield to pedestrians crossing the street. And then next is centerline hardening. So what the centerline hardening does is it extends out into an intersection and actually uses a vertical element. This example uses bollards, but forces turning vehicles to slow down to turn around that centerline area. So yeah, really focused on slowing turning vehicle speeds. And then the next one is a full vehicle closure. So what this does kind of in the northbound direction of the page, you can't turn left, and it kind of restricts that westbound through movement as well. So really eliminates kind of cut through traffic and turning movements that might be challenging for vehicles, but allows pedestrian and bicycle access kind of through that closure. And then the last one we've got a picture for is the leading pedestrian interval. So basically what this does is it allows a pedestrian to get the walk symbol before the vehicle light turns green. Typically about 3 to 5 seconds of walk time that the pedestrian has to kind of get out into the intersection so that vehicles kind of turning over that crosswalk have more visibility of those pedestrians. And then just some other recommendations. We don't have pictures for all of these, so I'll just name a few. But things like installing a new traffic signal or new signal infrastructure on existing equipment like pedestrian signal heads, wayfinding signage, bus stop relocation. Of course, that requires coordination with RTD, as well as all-way stop signs and stop sign flips and things like that. So with that, I will turn it back to Riley to wrap us up.
All right, thanks so much, Nikki. So once again, we just want to close out today by saying thanks so much for watching our presentation and for participating in the overall process. As a reminder, you can go to bit.ly/central CTN comment to provide feedback on the 60% designs. The comment period will be open through April 20th, so please share this information with your neighbors and community members as we definitely want to get as much feedback as possible on these designs. If you want to get in contact with a Dottie staff member, denvermoves@denvergov.org is an email address that you can use to send questions to us directly. In addition to that, if you have specific project concerns or questions that you would like to discuss in more detail, you do have office hours that are available at bit.ly/Denver Moves Networks. Again, make sure that you click on the Central tab, which will allow you to sign up for the Central office hours. And you can also, at that same page, you can find more information about each of the projects. You can see the past public meetings that have occurred as a result of this process. And you can also use that page to sign up for project updates and then continue to follow that along to see any new construction updates or that kind of thing. We try to keep that web page as updated as possible with any of those types of updates. And then finally, you can also call their project hotline at 720-865-9378 and leave a message if you would like to or more comfortable using the phone. And someone on the project team will call you back from that number. So thanks again so much for watching our presentation and for participating today. That concludes our presentation.